Hey,
So,
KayLee.
hello.
We both started at the same time. That's pretty funny. How are
Well,
you?
I was pausing because I recently listened to a couple of our podcasts
Hmm.
episodes, and my first thought was, why do I sound so chipper immediately off the bat? I just gave myself my own feedback. I was annoyed by my initial hello every time I listened to the first 5 seconds.
Why?
I think I was like, "Hi, Joe." I went, what am I doing? Why is
You
that
want to start more
necessary?"
somber? Hello,
Yeah. So
KayLee.
so this episode, I was starting with, good day, Joe," at like a normal as I would in a regular
I'm sorry,
tone.
but you are chipper. You're a ray
I
of
know.
sunshine, and don't let that light shine.
And well, I appreciate that reinforcement, but I had a severe reaction on the receiving end of that and thought, "Why can't I just be cool? I'm gonna be way cooler." And that resulted in me saying no words to open it up.
See, but it's a great example of fighting your instinct.
I guess.
It's like I'm going to portray a cooler, different version of myself when you're already cool.
Well, I'll tell you what, as long as you think that at this point, I will take it.
Hey,
But
we've been doing this a while now. You're cool.
we all take our own feedback, and mine was just chill a bit, just ease
Yeah.
into it. Let's just start.
But remember, sometimes the inner voice is the inner idiot who you need to ignore. So maybe that's not the best
Oh,
advice, you know?
you know what? And also, what a good callback, Joe, to like
Yeah.
episode 9, which was a banger. So, okay.
Nice.
So I was thinking about maximizing the talents on a team. I'm very lucky to be in a current role that I have where we've got a large team, and I've been thinking a lot about maximizing talents. And then I started thinking about maximizing the talents on this particular call.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, what a missed opportunity to not do a deeper dive into your expertise for sure. I mean, I'm giving it my best shot. But as an executive coach and having that exposure, that experience, I thought, why don't we tap into it today in a way that makes it practical for everybody else?
Yeah,
But
I really like that idea. That was a
yeah.
cool call because it's and I think we both have expertise in that area. I appreciate the shout out around. I've probably been doing it a little longer, so I might have a few more tricks up my sleeve. But don't discount your expertise there either. So we can both contribute to this conversation, together.
I think what we'll also realize as we talk through this is although I have done executive coaching and have had some training in that and participated, you have such a patience for it in a way that I do not as much. So I'm also expecting myself to have some takeaways here because we throw around this word a lot. The word coaching.
Yes.
I hear it in leadership, I hear it in meetings. It'll come from HR, it'll come from different areas where we say, just be more coach like.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
you know what you need to do? You need to coach your team.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
we just have to have a coaching mindset. And I'm applying our lens of how work actually works, going, okay, if we're honest though, a lot of leaders think that they're coaching when actually they're just solving problems faster than everybody else.
That's right. That's right. Some of
And it
them are
usually comes
grabbing.
from a good place. Yeah.
So, I just remember this story. I
Oh, okay.
worked
Right.
with an organization where this was a very senior person. And he said, yeah, I coach people. I coach people like I coach football. I grab them by the face mask, I get in their face, and I tell them what to do. That's how I coach. And this was before I was a coach. I was really working. I'm still working in learning and development. So I was mortified to hear these words come out of an
Yeah.
executive's mouth, like proudly too, which is,
Yeah.
he also did something where, true story, if he didn't like what you said, he would make you sit in the corner in the meeting.
That is not
Honestly,
true, Joe.
this
There's
is a
no
true
way.
story.
That's not with
Confirmed
adults.
by other. I was never in the room because he was like a senior leader with people who reported to him at one level below, and I heard from multiple sources that happened.
Well, that's interesting because my next sentence was going to be this usually comes from a good place with good intentions
Sometimes
where
it does, and most times it does. Sometimes it comes from,
yeah,
like, a jackass who doesn't know what he's doing and thinks a
okay.
clipboard and a whistle is what you bring into the boardroom.
Okay, that's totally fair. I guess that's a fair dynamic then. Whereas with other people, they want to help, they want to remove
Yes, most people
barriers.
wanna help. I just gave you an extreme example because I forgot all about it.
It just came to you.
It's like
I love it.
yeah, flashed back into my memory when we talked about coaching.
Wow. Well, somewhere along the way, I just believe that helpful leadership has turned into dependency.
Yes,
And
yes, that's a good way
then
to put it.
the leader wonders, why does everyone keep bringing everything back to me?
Yeah,
And the answer, Joe, is what?
you trained them to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah,
exactly what it is.
yeah, behavior that is repeated is rewarded, and you're rewarded that behavior.
And today we're getting practical on that then, because I think as much as we could dive into several different areas in this particular topic,
Yep,
I'm narrowing it down to the 3 coaching questions every leader should steal this week. Why they work, where leaders get this wrong, and maybe some practical tools to actually make coaching a little bit easier in real life. So
yep, yep, love it.
that's kind of what I'm thinking. So here I thought as an outline, as I kind of we can go back and forth and I can ask questions, but as the this rule of 3 that we keep bringing up, I see these mistakes happening and it kind of brings this home a little bit for us. So
Yeah,
number 1 is this from answers to questions. That
mhm,
coaching becomes advice disguised as questions.
yes.
Is that a good one? Should we leave that one
Great,
in there?
love it.
Okay, let's leave that one. The second one was about in terms of mistakes we make. Leaders confuse support with rescuing.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
the invisible tax of overhelping.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay, and then the third kind of mistake in that area then would be that coaching only shows up when something is wrong.
Right.
And they go, "Oh, we just gotta coach them."
Yep, yep.
So I'm gonna pause for a moment. That's kind of what I have in store. Does that sound that fits with what you're willing to
Yeah,
chat
those are
about?
3 big areas because it's kinda where leaders want to manage instead of coach, and they think they're coaching, but it's really management in disguise, and it's not even good management all the time. Sometimes it's not a best practice. It's like a overreaching practice.
That's so true. So even okay, then let's start into one then. So let's talk about from giving answers to asking questions.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
what has been your experience or what have you noticed? Because even in an executive coach role, you're dealing with leaders who have this as an issue, I'm sure, often.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the
Yeah,
tactics that you're using on them are actually ones that they could be incorporating into their day to day.
that's right.
So
Yeah,
talk to me about this first shift. Yeah.
yeah, it's, I often talk to leaders about when in doubt, ask versus tell. So that's like the general framework I give when we talk about, hey, look, even if you can tell someone, why not ask first? And I don't just mean in the abstract, like just always ask questions and be like sort of, you know, constantly querying people. It's much more
Hmm.
about why am I providing the answer here and how can they learn and grow by asking them a question? So it happens in a
Hmm.
coaching relationship where sometimes people, I've coached people where they're like, you're never going to tell me what I should do, are you? And I'm like, no, I'm going to coach you through it by asking you questions. You ask questions
Hmm.
to give people the introspection they might be lacking, to help them see the perspective that they might be missing, to give them a guide to explore it differently. So rather than just saying, hey, have you thought about, and by the way, have you thought about this is not a question.
Good call.
You know, have you
Yes.
tried to do
Agreed.
X is not a question. It's a statement disguised as a question.
I
So
like
that's
that.
where, so we get into like, first of all, why do we ask questions? We ask questions because we want to guide, not direct. So if someone truly needs direction, they've never done it before, it's brand new to them, or they're confused, provide direction. Don't be cute and ask a million questions. Anything
You
else?
mean, Joe, if I come to you and say, "Look, I'm trying to decide which solution to take. I got option A and I got option B." What I'm not looking for in that moment is for you to say, "So I'm getting the impression you're torn. You're torn
Right,
between
right,
solutions." It sounds like
right.
what you're saying is answer the damn question. Like,
Well,
yeah.
even there, you could coach. You could say, tell me. okay, so you're considering option A and option B. What are your three biggest priorities to get out of this? What are you looking to accomplish with either one of those? And then,
Okay.
which one's closest? What's the best of option A and why do you love it? What's the best of option B? Why do you love it? When you compare the two, if I forced a decision tonight, which one would you pick? That's still a
Mm,
question. And in no case did I substitute my judgment for yours. Because that's where we get
mm,
into trouble as a coach, particularly. I don't live in your shoes. I don't walk in your shoes. I don't live in your world. So why should I substitute my judgment for yours? I'm simply going to point out things with observations. And observations, by the way, are not directive. An observation is, hey, this is about the third time you've had this issue with this person. What do you think you're going to do now so it doesn't happen again?
yeah.
That's a coaching
I
question.
yeah,
Instead
I
of
love
saying,
saying
the
yeah,
third time you've had this problem with this person, I think it's time you confront them. No, no, no. They need to own that action because maybe confrontation is uncomfortable for them, or maybe they have other worries. Now, if somebody says, if you think confrontation is necessary, you could
mm,
say, hey, is confrontation on the table for you or not? Like that's a question. And then if they say absolutely not, you could say, tell me more. Why won't you confront this person? What's holding you back? You're just
mm,
exploring, exploring, exploring. And as a coach, executive coach, we definitely don't want to give too much direction. As a manager, try not to give too much direction. At the end of the day, you can give direction. It's a little different relationship, but be careful when giving direction. So
mm.
always try to put your first step in the form of a question, even if it's simply, well, what have you thought about? How are you thinking about this before I even jump in? Somebody comes to you with a problem, you could simply say, what have you thought about so far? What are your potential solutions? Give me a sense of where you're at. That's a great question, right? Gets them thinking.
I see managers make this mistake during feedback discussions, and instead of
Yes.
taking a coaching lens, they take
Yes.
this management lens, and they will even write out, here's how I'm going to tell them why their impact of their behavior was not okay. I'm going to be crystal clear with it.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
try to catch them in that moment and go, but you already know why it's not okay.
Yeah.
So ideally, you want the person on the receiving end to articulate why is the behavior not okay.
Exactly.
The goal
Exactly.
the goal is to get them to say it. So to your point, Joe, it's what questions can you ask to steer, not guide, but just to steer the conversation in a way that gets them to go, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the way I sent that email probably got perceived as pretty aggressive if I'm reading it back from their perspective.
That's
But
right.
when they say that and they own it, don't you think that translates into behavior change way more so than the
Yeah,
manager
because
going, you sent that email and really pissed those people off?
that's right. Because
Yeah.
when you make a statement, it's ordinarily a judgment because you're saying that was a terrible email and it pissed people off. That's a judgment.
Yeah.
You can
Yes.
say, you sent this email and Tony was upset. That's a fact.
Hmm.
Whether Tony should be upset is a conversation. And then we could talk about why do you think Tony was upset? Well, Tony is just too sensitive. Well,
Hmm.
then we have to have eventually. By the way, I want to disclaim that I want to say this up front for the skeptics, because I love to address the skeptics early. Yes, you can tell them point blank that was wrong. You should have never sent that email. Don't do it again. We're not telling you to not give hard feedback. We're saying take a shot at getting the person to discover for themselves that what they did was stupid, because then they own it and they recognize it and they feel like less defensive because they go, oh, wow, I could see why Tony would take that way. Well, thank you for helping me see that. Versus the shields go up when you say, what are you doing
Yeah.
sending that message to Tony?
Yeah.
Then it's like, boom, all I want to do is prove that I was right sending this message. So I get my deflector
Yes.
beams out.
Yes.
Lower the shields, have a conversation. Tony was upset. Any idea why? Tell me about the message. How do you think he took it that way? Why do you think he took it that way? Even maybe he is sensitive. It's like, hey, guess what? You got to deal with different sensitivities. What can you do differently next time? So there's a point of like, hey, the performance was unacceptable. Think of as a leader, go into it with, where am I on the range here? Is this something that they did it their way versus my way, so I should let it go? Is it something that close call, they should probably reconsider? Or is it something that can't happen again? Like, hey, under no circumstances do you
Mm.
call somebody an asshole in email in our company. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Yeah.
range of things.
Yeah.
So when the range is like severe, You could still have them discover, but you could be the boss and say, never do that again.
So what about,
Questions are your
so
friend.
because what we're talking about here, I get that. But what we're talking about with the instead of answers, shift to questions. That's the
Yes.
difference between a management approach and a coaching approach. Is
Yes.
we might have the answers, but we catch ourselves in that moment and ask questions instead.
Yes.
So how does a leader know when to do which one?
Yeah.
Because you and I both know there are moments where you do just need to give an answer
That's right. That's right.
versus move into like the coaching, ask the question part. So I'm just, as I'm listening to you talk, I think that's so valuable, but I could also imagine a manager going, okay, well, I'm not going to go through every conversation asking 8 questions to get to the solution that I already know we need to have happen. So there's like a middle ground, but there's also a point where what tactic could we give people to let them know when it's okay to also just give the answer?
Yeah. Um, I think giving the answer when somebody says, I absolutely don't know what to do and I need your input here, you can provide an answer, right? Like, I don't know what to do. I need your help.
Yeah.
That's where you want to be careful to not annoy them with questions. But I think it's easy to quit too soon on questions, though. So be careful to not just give it a
Yeah.
shot. Um,
I like
and yeah,
that.
we got on a little sidetrack in terms of more conflict oriented things. I think the first check for the manager is maybe not even when to ask a question. It's w- you're giving an answer because you have a particular expertise, right?
Hmm.
Because you're giving an answer because you probably did that job before. So it's more efficient to give the answer. So more often than not, you're giving an answer to save your time. What if you reframed it and said, I can give this person the answer, but what would be most beneficial to them? Me telling them or them figuring it out? And if you think they can figure it out, don't give them the answer. Help them
Hmm.
discover. That's probably a good rule of thumb. It's like, hey, I
I like
learned how
that.
to do it through the right coaching, or I learned how to do it through investigation and research. Let me set them up for the same process. And you could set the parameters and say, look, I could probably give you the answer. I think you're going to learn more by figuring this one out. Here's some things to think about. So a good
Yeah.
coach also can say, here's some things to think about, and then give them some ideas to explore without again saying do A, B, and C. So that's another middle ground. It doesn't have to be a question, but it could be statements that are not the solution.
Hmm. No, and I can see that, and even for me, it almost the moments when I know I need to just give an answer are when there is a severe urgency attached to it.
Yes,
A severe
absolutely.
consequence will
Perfect.
occur unless we have a
Yes.
decision. Or the
Yes.
second one for me is if there is a true expertise gap.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we're not developing because I know that sounds like the opposite of coaching, but sometimes there are moments based on who you're chatting to. There is a true expertise gap where I think it's okay to lean in and share your knowledge in some ways,
Yes.
at least
Yes.
in a way that goes, look, there might be 2 options to consider based on my experience. Here's 2 you might want to think about.
That's
Is
right.
that's probably fair as well, would you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't it's so hard to create guidelines for this because
Yeah.
the context is unlimited. So I'd rather people approach it at least with a curiosity first to say,
I
before
love
I
it.
make a statement, can I ask one question here? It's almost like training yourself to not give answers can happen through just asking a question. And
Perfect.
AI gets in the way with a lot of AI can be good and bad. We know there's a dark side, a bright side. One thing AI can help with is thinking about, hey, I don't want to give the person the answer here, but I want to help them discover what are some questions I could ask. That's probably a good use of AI for you as like a little,
That's a good tip.
prompt. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because if you don't know the questions, and again, why waste all that time? Just use a resource that might help you.
Number 2.
Yes.
From fixing performance, I gotta fix that person's performance,
Yeah.
to actually growing people.
Yeah. Yeah.
This this is a
Yeah.
difference between management and coaching a bit too. So managers watch that gap between expectation and delivery,
Yes.
whereas I feel like coaches, they widen the frame to the
Yes.
person.
Yep.
So who is this work asking them to become?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know? So tell me,
Yeah.
okay, tell me what you think about that, the fixing performance to growing people.
Yeah, I think managers are trained to manage performance first, and
Hmm.
then they're given the rigor of like evaluation, which we could do a whole episode on the validity of some evaluation.
That's
But
right.
well, the short version is it's not as scientific as you think. um, and maybe having consistent conversations is better than an annual review. But we'll save that for another one because that's one of my
Okay.
passions. But for
Okay.
this one, there is obviously performance gaps exist, and it's a manager's job, a leader's job to make sure people are meeting expectations because the only way you succeed is people are doing their jobs, right? So they're
Mm.
so good at that, they kind of stop at that sometimes unintentionally,
Hmm.
meaning they focus their energy on poor performers. They kind of leave the middle performers alone and they forget about the highest performers completely because those are like autopilot. They're the best. They leave them alone. So that translates into the only time I hear from you is negative feedback. When a high performer makes one mistake, they hear from the leader. When a regular performer makes a mistake, they hear from the leader. And the poor performer always hears what they're doing wrong, which is probably the only case where they should. Because guess what? Some people may need to find a new role if they can't get it right. So as a leader, in all those scenarios, don't forget to recognize your top performers and go beyond, hey, you're doing great work. Don't just praise them, talk about their growth and what's next for them. Because right now, just because they deliver exceptional performance doesn't mean that's the end of your job as a leader. So take that conversation to the next level of what do you want to do next? What are you most excited about next? What kind of support do you need? For your middle performers, talk about the potential for them because
Mm.
some of your middle performers can move up to that highest performer level. What do they need to get there? If you're only talking about deficits to get them back to regular performance, you're never talking about growth.
Yeah.
And then with your poor performers, which of those could be truly rescued and which of those need to be managed out? Because you should not have a poor performer who lingers and hangs on for 2 years. And we've seen that. We've seen the sort of protected worker. I don't mean legally protected. I mean the unjustifiable protection of this person has like plot armor.
Yeah.
The term plot armor where somebody's in a TV show and like the bullets always fly by and they never get hit. So that
Yeah.
happens in the workplace sometimes. Like, how have we not gotten rid of this person yet? And guess what? That's a drag on morale. That's a drag on your culture. So in
Yeah.
all those cases, you're missing the opportunity to focus on growth and not just maintenance and delivery of the status quo.
When it comes to growing people with a coach's mindset versus
Yes.
just a manager's, what do we run the risk of if we is it possible to focus too much on growth and development? I guess I'm trying to figure out where the balance is because I know we're saying that the coaches are really good at this development piece, asking questions such as what's one of my favorites is I asked someone this last week, Joe. I said, what skill would you like to build that you currently don't have as much of? Like
Hmm.
I was trying to get really specific, not just where do you want to go, what's your next step? I go,
Yeah.
what's the skill you wish you had more exposure to that you know would make a bigger impact in your role today?
Yeah.
And we just started this whole conversation around skills. And then I realized very quickly you also then run the risk of that skill then meaning that they want a conference and to go to this session and to have
Yeah.
a so
Yeah.
there's I guess that's what I'm trying to say is there's a balance somewhere in there. You don't want to overpromise, underdeliver on the development side, but you want to
Yeah.
make sure you're asking the right coaching questions.
Yep. Yep. I mean, and so much development can happen in just real world application too. Through
Yes.
so the conversation I just had with someone recently that I coach is when we think about your own development, you think of your development in four areas. One area is what's a strength you want to continue to explore and grow even stronger? What's a strength that you haven't fully tapped into yet and you want to maybe experiment with for the very first time? So it's something newer to you, or maybe, like you said, a new skill. What's a weakness or a challenge that gets in the way that we can address together? And the
Hmm.
fourth thing is, where do you want to go next? And what combination of those things are going to get you there? So that's a coaching conversation that is contained within your current role and your future
Hmm.
role at the same time. And it's all about what you know about yourself. So really the key for the leader is, do I know this person's strength? Do I agree with them? Do I understand their challenges? Do I agree with them? And do I see their potential the way they do? So you got to do the
Yes.
homework as the leader to say, yeah, I see Kaylee's strength in designing an experience and facilitating in front of the room. And I think so there's some untapped potential in this area for her. And here's what gets in the way. She has 10 projects at the same time and completing them. And I don't even know this about you specifically. It's probably me projecting my thing that I open 10 cans and I
That's
don't have them
okay.
all. I start 10 things and I finish 3 of them. But
But I
that's
bet those 3 things are amazing, Joe.
thanks.
I bet
But
they're
that's a real
pretty amazing.
conversation you could have with someone if you are in tune with what they're doing every day. And I don't mean literally every day. I mean over short periods of time, you see their work and you know what their work is. So you can actually observe their strengths, you can witness their challenges, and you can guide them to become more powerful in their work. So yeah, it doesn't
Hmm,
have to be like always go to a conference,
hmm.
go take on these big things. It's simply because when I have a coaching conversation, it's like if you want to do, I have an executive who is talking too much. He's talking too much during meetings. He notices about himself. He feels like he's over explaining things. So that's really just like a trigger thing of like, when are you going to notice that you're starting to talk? Like I told him, I said, glance at the time and notice when you're talking and check again to see if you're talking for more than 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Some of these are just simple skills to kind of rein in the things that are a strength overdone. It's, you don't have to go to a workshop to learn how to not talk for 10 minutes straight.
I like that. I like it. Number 3 am I okay to move to number 3? I also
Yeah,
had 2
please
more
go
we
ahead.
could get out to
Yeah,
2, but
I think we covered that one pretty well.
okay. Number 3, from doing it for them to doing it with them. So
Yeah, yeah,
same care, different effect.
that's
It's
right.
this idea that doing it for them removes the struggle and the growth inside it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the it can be one of the hardest shifts, I think, because most managers were promoted for being the one who could step in and do the work because
that's
they
right.
have the answers or because they have an expertise.
That's right.
So it this does connect a little bit with what we talked about on a previous episode about delegation, I think
It
a little
does.
bit as I'm, considering this, but
It does.
let's try and put on the coach's lens in this way. How does that differ? How would a coach approach this versus a
Yeah.
manager
Coaches have it easy because we don't work with the people, so we can't do it
if you're
for them.
separated?
Yeah.
Yes,
So the way we
yes.
don't do it for them is we don't give them the answer, right? That's one of the ways. But, I spend more time coaching on this though as a real skill than many other
For the
skills
leaders.
for the leader. Because delegation is still so underutilized. And it starts with
Hmm,
trust, but trust is only built through experiences with people. So I can't trust you with something if I don't know you and know what you're capable of, nor can I, and it's on me also to show you how to do these things the first few times. So I'm,
hmm.
I'm literally having 2 conversations related to this with 2 different people. With one
Okay,
person, it's an issue of constantly going back and rescuing the old department that they came from. And it's not a big burden for them, but it's still a bit of a burden where
okay.
that is, they sort of haven't solved for how do you do this when my replacement is gone? So it's almost like
Hmm,
coaching his peer who took over for his old role to say, hey, how can you cross train some of your people to be able to do this when you're gone? Because every time you're gone, I have to go in and do it for them.
hmm,
That's kind of it's interesting though, did he leave that department without training anyone himself, right? So he probably left people who couldn't do it, and the new person didn't train anyone to do it. So it's a sort of a double delegation challenge.
yeah.
The other person is simply, um, he likes to control it. He likes to know it's going to
Mhm,
be done right, and it's done right. It's done quickly. Why slow down and have to go through all the rigmarole of training people to do it? But he's recognizing that that's part of their development and aspirational growth. So if they don't get new juicy things to work on, they get stagnant. Then he realized he has to have conversations with his team so that they could have, because he's more senior, he has to have conversations with his team so they could have conversations with their team members because it has
hmm,
to kind of work its way down. He delegates to his team, they delegate to their people, and everybody learns and grows. And now he's showing greater readiness for people to move up. And guess what? It helps him in his career goal because if he wants to be the next CEO, he gets to talk about the CEO about how he's prepared his succession in a real way, not just on some 9-box form that may not mean anything, but in a meaningful way by saying, I've delegated these big things to these people and they're ready to take my job if I'm ever not here. And down the line, there's filling, role fulfillment, role, there's backup
Fulfillment.
for every role.
This
Yeah.
example makes me think of the police force.
Okay.
I I have been very lucky to have a client in the city police,
Hmm.
and when I as I'm listening to you explain it, I'm thinking about the I'm listening to you, by the way, but I'm also thinking of the field training officers
Yeah.
and about their approach when it comes to doing it with them
Hmm.
as part of this. For example, for a portion of the training, and it's extensive. They have a 6-month period as field training officers with new recruits.
Hmm.
There's a whole section of shifts that are done where the training officer is in plain clothes with the new recruit
Oh,
who is
wow.
in full uniform.
Yeah.
And what they do is spend those entire 4 shifts as if the FTO or the field training officer was not in the car with them.
Okay.
So they're going it's basically like a way to provide support without removing responsibility.
Yes. Yes.
So they are there if needed, but the goal is, "Look, I want you to do this. I want you to try it. I'm here for you." So the whole point of this, even the physical clothes that I'm gonna wear are gonna be different to
Hmm.
showcase you are the one in uniform, you are the one in
You're in
charge.
charge. Yeah.
Yes.
I love
And
that.
okay, because I think that could fit it kind of fits with what we're talking about here, and it works in a way that the recruit is impacted substantially, but also as I'm sharing that, I'm going, how can we incorporate ideas like that into coaching practice as leaders? How do
Yeah.
you provide the support without moving responsibility there?
I left out a part of the conversation I had with this one leader who's
Oh,
doing the
okay, yeah.
delegation. You just reminded me of it
Okay, good.
because we talked about how, hey, maybe one of the things you're struggling with is handing it over. So what if you took a slower approach where you said, do a piece of the work with me. Let me show you. Let me sit. Then you do it on your own. Then when you've sort of mastered that, do this next piece of the work. So it's like this gradual handoff where you give it to them over stages. And because I think a lot of leaders struggle with delegation, thinking delegation means giving it to the person. So they give it to them when they're not ready. It's like preparing them and readiness is part of the whole. It's just think of it as a transition period. And that
Mm,
transition period helps you feel confident they've learned. And it helps them feel confident that they've also learned. And then you get more trust that they're going to do it right because you showed them every step of the way. So it's similar to that. And I forgot about it because we talked about like, hey, you don't just dump it on their desk one day and say, here's the files, go for it. It's like, no, 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 step by step by step. So break
yes.
it into smaller bites.
Okay. Well, I think that all fits then,
It
actually,
does.
in that way.
I feel like
So
I've done a lot of talking here because, this one feels a little imbalanced only because it's like you're interviewing me almost. So I
oh,
hope
I'm
people,
sorry. Yeah.
I hope
Well,
people understand. Like, there's usually some great KayLee stories, and we didn't have enough of those.
I tossed in one about the police force there
Good, good,
in
good.
that moment. I mean, how about this? I care way less about who's talking and more about, is anyone gonna use any of the information we're sharing as a way to make their
Yeah.
life easier tomorrow?
Absolutely. And
Because
and how do we do that? That's a good way to kinda think about this. Well,
yeah,
how can we make their life better tomorrow?
yeah, so which story or whichever, if it means which actually didn't mean to, but what a beautiful transition to the 3 Ts. It's
Yes.
almost like I know what I'm doing, Joe. I can't believe that. Speaking of tomorrow,
Yes.
a tactic, tool, tip, something to take away. I I of course have one already. I'm sure you'll have one to add or jump in. But I think based on what we're saying, the first one would be this. There are 3 questions you can steal. Pick one
Mm.
of them for your
Mhm.
next one-on-one,
Love
your
it.
next conversation. It could be, unless you want to change or add to these, but the question could be, what are you seeing that I'm not? I love that one.
Great question.
'Cause it just shows humility in a way as the leader to go, "I'm
Yes.
sure there's lots that I'm not seeing."
And it's
And
so much better than what do you think, by the way.
oh, I know.
And
Yeah,
just to be specific, why is it so much better than what do you think? Because what are you seeing that I'm not is almost like credibility saying, I think you see things, I recognize you see things differently. So tell me. Versus
Yes.
what do you think is like, what's your opinion? And they're like, well, you're the expert. I didn't ask if you were an expert. What do you see that I'm not seeing? That's a
Yeah.
really, really good question.
And it shows abundance mindset, right? I don't have all the answers.
That's
I'm
right.
trying to
That's
figure
right.
it out also.
That's
So
right.
I okay, I'm glad you like that one. The second option for a question to steal would be what would what would growing through this look like separate from solving it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I would love to get either people I'm working with on my team to start thinking of
Yes.
instead of just thinking about solving the problem,
That's
what
right.
what does it look like if you think about growing through it? What
That's
is
right.
step 1 look through them?
Right. Like, do we have enough time here where instead of me giving you the answer, I can guide you to the answer? So it's like, like I'll give you a personal example. If you want to set up a home theater, I could tell you exactly how to set up a home theater system. But wouldn't it be better if I said, go do some research on sound bars versus center channels and 5.1 systems? Tell me what you think. It's like I
Yeah.
show you how to explore the topic rather than just brain dump everything about it. And I know that's a casual example, but it applies to
Oh,
anything in work. It's like, don't give me the answer, give me the breadcrumbs to find the answer. If you have the
exactly.
time, if you have the luxury of that.
Yeah. I love a good breadcrumb. The third question that you could steal is, how can I help without taking this over?
Yeah. That's so
N
much better than how can I help? Because normally
Okay,
it'd be
yes.
like, here, take it.
Yeah, but it's again, it's that providing support without removing responsibility. I wanna go,
That's
"Look,
right.
I wanna help," and it also isn't just saying, "What roadblock can I remove?" Although I like that question too, but it's
Yeah,
open enough that allows the other person to share something that might be unexpected
that's right.
back.
That's
And it
right.
also clarifies my intention is not to take over and solve the problem. I
Oh, that's
wanna
so
help,
good.
I
That's
don't
so
wanna
good.
take it over.
Because in the past, if you took over and if you start asking that, they'll realize, oh, maybe this time he won't take over. Right? Because
Yes,
if how can I help always ends with them taking it back, you're never going to ask for help.
exactly.
That's good. That's good. Great
Okay.
questions. Love it.
I'm glad you approve.
All right.
Do you have one for a
I
tool or
have a tip
tactic?
or trick or tactic
Okay.
or technique, and that is, when we get back to one of our examples from earlier, it's like fixing performance and like sort of performance management. Spend some time just catching people doing something right. So observing good performance only can change the tone of how you lead. And observing that good performance, since it's probably strengths based, can then feel more growth oriented to say, hey, great job on that. I saw your talent for this come through. How about we do more of that here? So it's like more talent and growth and development of strengths rather than always catching you doing something wrong. So catch people doing something right. Even if it's, do it 3 out of 4 times, make the
Mm.
ratio high. And that's not
I
even
like
that
it.
high. It should be about 10 out of 11 times.
No, that's a good one, though. I think that's great.
Okay.
Okay, here's one other one. If your team keeps coming back to you for every answer, that's feedback.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
that
Yes.
is not about them.
That's right.
I guess that's what I'm maybe I don't know, is that a tactic? I'm more just trying to give an idea of for people to look in the mirror
Well,
and think
it
about
is.
over the last week.
The source
Yeah.
of that is either it's you in many forms. It's you leader because you may have just hired the wrong person, so you got to fix that. Or you've
Okay.
trained
That's
them
true.
to, right? Because maybe you did hire someone who can't do the work. Well, they're coming to you, and what are you going to do about it? Or you're not giving enough support, or direction. You're just giving them support. You know the difference between direction and support, right? Being supportive and is not directive.
Mhm.
Maybe they need direction, but you're training them either way. You're training them to just come to you for the answer. So it's a you problem. And I guess the technique would be when someone comes to you for the answer, yes, ask a question, but sometimes just be quiet for a few seconds. See what they say next. Because sometimes they'll start to solve it themselves when you sit there and just sit back. If you react with an answer, they get their answer. If they come with a problem and you sit back and go, huh, let me think about that. And then, or just be quiet and then maybe prompt them with like, well, tell me more about it. What do you think's going on there? One question to get it rolling, but slow the reaction time, the reaction time to providing value. We got a minute. We got to really maximize that. Take your time.
I worked with an HR director who was brilliant in a lot of ways, but also terrifying in others. So I just want to clarify that this individual had incredible strengths, but also
Yes.
opportunities.
Yes.
But her ability to use the power of silence to flush out what was really going on
Yes.
is is a mastery over this skill that I have never seen anyone else
That's
do.
cool. That's
I
cool.
mean, she would commit, Joe, in facial expressions and the silence. I remember the first time having exposure to that going, I didn't realize you could do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just kept babbling through most of the time. And
Right.
I would distinctly remember a moment where it shifted my leadership capability just from witnessing her
Yeah.
use this moment where she would just sit back and you could not outwait her. I tried. I made it to 8 seconds once. And then I just continued on. That's my record. That's the longest I've
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
But I always think of her in some ways in those moments where I feel it even in myself wanting to jump in and I go, hold back. They will
That's
fill
right.
the space. They
That's right.
will.
Even if it's vague, a question like "Tell me more" is more clever than you think to get people going. So instead, if you're not comfortable with silence, just say "Tell me more." Somebody comes to you with something, "Oh, interesting. Tell me more." Where they go with that is a lot of information. Because telling you,
True.
like, it's like, what do you mean, tell me more? They're going to tell you more in the direction of the real problem. That's what I'm saying, right? So it's like, tell
Yeah.
me more a few times gets you to uncover. It's like layers of the onion start peeling away sometimes. So trust that question is a good one because it's worked over many, many years for many of us.
I love it all, but we're nerds for this. I hope that there's a
Yes.
piece of it that is helpful and interesting or practical application of it. And if nothing else, I'm just happy to hang out with you. So
Same here. Same here.
there's
If, if,
that.
if, if there's one big takeaway, don't make a statement when you can ask a question. Think about that.
Like it.
That's your one big takeaway. Do not make a statement if you can ask a simple question.
Yeah. Tell me more. Just kidding. We can't. Time's up.
Good
But
stuff.
you can tell me more in a fortnight, Joe. I will see you then.
See you soon. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.